warm good evening to you. Our very special guest is President of the Barbados Youth Development Council and founder of the Belfield Youth Council, Mr. Caleb Brathwaite. Caleb, very happy to have you in this very special one-on-one.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're most welcome. You would have recently represented Barbados at the UN Summit for the Future, speaking on the importance of revamping the United Nations structure and the importance of more youth representation. Why was this so important for you to be involved in?
Well, my representation at the United Nations Summit in the Future was really and truly to represent small developing states, children, and youth, and ensure that their voice can be heard on such a large platform. The United Nations Summit to the Future was the first ever Summit to the Future, and you had the adoption of the Pact for the Future, which is essentially what the focus is really on. And the Pact for the Future is basically humanity's last hope to get it right. We live in a world which there are many worries, which is poverty, which hunger still continues to be a main challenge, and even that of slavery, and not even the slavery I would have seen yesteryear, years beyond, but a new different kind of slavery. We live in a world which is problem plagued, and the adoption for the Pact of the Future, which I commend the world for doing, is to be able to bring about that much needed change for the world and ensure that young people, children, and youth can have that better life. Now, well, there would have called for the revamping the United Nations system to be able to better cater for 2024 and beyond. And basically what you see is that the United Nations system coming out of the Bretton Woods Treaty, coming out of what the First World War, or maybe the second, I believe the Second World War, but that history from all the years ago, that foundation still exists today, and one which is what it says rotting away, and one which needs to be able to redevelop, and be able to ensure that that foundation can cater for 2024 and beyond. Now, what I would have also called from that stage is for the recently established United Nations Youth Office to be able to. It is already established in youth office. What needs to happen is that it become decentralized so that it can play a better role in ensuring that the champion of children and youth rights can and actually be actualized. So that what happens is that you have a UN youth office or a team of about 10 people headquarters in New York. Yes, I commend His Excellency the Secretary General for establishing the office. I believe His Excellency is doing tremendous work in ensuring that there's a greater youth representation. But there is more work to be done. And that is why the UN Youth Office is so important. It needs to be decentralized and establishing already multi-country offices in the world so that it's not really a strain on the resources of the UN, but so that it can do the work it ought to do.
Regarding your work with the recent summit that you would have attended, why was it important for you to be there and representing Barbados at such a time?
So my attendance at the Summit of the Future is basically a continuation coming out of the Global Children and Youth Action Summit for SIDS, which is held in Antigua and Barbuda, as well as my attendance at the 4th International Conference for SIDS. When we look at the history of it, that the first ever SIDS conference was held in Barbados, and that is one which is held every 10 years, and look at how we can be able to advance small developing states. And this year, in 2024, the fourth one was so important. We know about the climate crisis. We know about the 1.5 degrees to stay alive. We know the myriad amount of challenges facing small developing states. And this one was very crucial. Coming out of that, you will see that there's the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for cities, the Abbas Agreement, that there's going to be establishment of the Center of Excellence. And this Center of Excellence is basically to look at how we could be able to monitor what the city's leaders sort of agreed to, and be able to ensure that you can drive about change. Now, for the children and youth point of view, what would happen is that there's a 10-year commitment to action document, which was presented to SIDS leaders and which was adopted, so that within this 10-year commitment to action document, it looks at environmental integrity and planet sustainability. It looks at the economy. It looks at personal development and youth development, ensuring that young people are included in their decisions. All of these things which should be able to ensure that children and youth can thrive in cities and there can be a better life going forward.
What do you think it would take for youth to have not only take up space at the table, but to be heard, to be understood where these big international organizations are concerned?
Well, what I would say is that youth work and being a youth work for numerous years now is one which is challenging because that youth advocate, more than not, that youth advocate may be going to school, or maybe that youth advocate may be unemployed. That youth advocate has a personal life outside of that, and also have the cause which he or she is fighting for, so that the youth advocate has a lot on its plate to really and truly be pressing on these various policymakers to be able to drive about that change. Because that policymaker goes somewhere and only focuses on policy and have a personal life. The youth advocate has a lot going on. So now to be able to it is all fine and dandy that youth advocate having to be at the table. But for example, when you call this youth advocate and say, okay, we have a meeting at 9 a.m., that youth advocate may not be able to get there because that youth advocate, one, may have school, two, maybe working. So that there's a little bit of challenge and breakdown for that youth advocate to really to be on the ball and on the game. So that what really needs to happen is that we must rethink youth work and ensure that youth work and youth workers like myself could really and truly be able to fight for the causes. For example, the National Youth Council, and I'm grateful that our voices have been heard in relation to the increase in our subvention. We was asking for an increase. I would like more. We need more actually. I'm glad that the ministry has given us a space within the ministry youth to be able to conduct our work. But what really needs to happen is that we have to sit down, whether it be the Prime Minister along with the Minister of Youth, and to be able to hash out looking at how we could be able to redevelop the youth system. And we know this conversation is ever so important, is because the country is facing a lot of youth violence, a lot of challenges among young people. So that it is so important that us as youth leaders who are on the ground, who know the challenges that young people are facing, who have solutions to these challenges, and who can be able to work with our peers to bring about us rectification and solving these challenges can happen. So that so what I'm saying is basically is that for as youth workers, you have to, of course, we need to earn a living, so that if there can be some sort of resources so that we can be always on the ground, and be able to contributing to be able to ensuring that the problems that this country is facing among young people can be resolved, and it will take young people to solve them.
What resources do you think are most important right now for youth to adequately represent their peers and their counterparts?
Well, from the National Youth Council standpoint, is that we've advocated for increase in subvention. We've gotten that slight increase. We've advocated for a space, and we've gotten a space to be able to do that. What needs to happen is that the National Youth Council, honestly, is so poised to be able to contribute to ensuring that the problems we face here among young people can be solved. And what needs to happen is that you have to look at youth work and youth development work within a different lens. Now, I don't know if Barbadians believe that I'm paid for the work I do. I can assure you that I'm not paid. So that all of my team, or my 10 members of my team, we are not paid. We go and we contribute to youth development, and we do this thing for the heart, and that we want to see a change. But for the heart, they'll be able to put food on the table, or to be able to get bus fare, to be able to do the work that is needed. So that what needs to happen is that, I don't know, maybe a policy framework with government looking at how we could be able to ensure that us as youth workers could be supported, so that we can go out there and do more, create more change, because there's only so much we do, because we have to go work. I have members of my team who work probably even more than 8 hours a day. You can't expect them, after all of that, a long amount of time, to go out and say that we could do this. Yes, to do it, but how many times they can do it? So that we have, as a society, we look the involvement of the National Youth Council, and how policymakers treat the National Youth Council.
Well, we've made reference of the National Youth Council. For Barbadians watching who may not know, what is the Barbados National Youth Council?
Right. So the National Youth Council for Barbados essentially is called the Barbados Youth Development Council. We are the oldest in the region, and the fourth oldest in the world. having been established in 1969, we look at building youth and developing country, looking at the holistic development of young people. We are also the umbrella organization for all youth groups in this country. So we are essentially can be referred to as the youth cabinet, and which essentially is the youth voice for this country. So we interact with various government departments, government workers. We sit on various committees looking at ensure that there's youth representation on the direction that government is heading towards. But even that is a challenge because you have to get to these committee meetings and bus fare is 350, so that you see what I'm saying in relation to the more resources that's needed.
And you've been president of the Barbados Youth Development Council for the past year plus. Why was it important for you to take up the mantle where youth representation and youth activism is concerned?
But I've always had the mantra of service beyond self because I see and well know that I can play a greater role in assisting people in their lives. I've always been that one who has been helpful, and service has always been my calling. And taking up the role of president of the Barbados Development Council was essentially a rite of passage to be able to actively contribute in such a position and ensure that young people like me can benefit from whether it be positive development or whether it be opportunities to help them thrive in Barbados or even abroad.
For the Barbados Youth Development Council, what is the sitting vision currently?
So the sitting vision for the current executive Barbados Development Council is better together, looking at how we as the National Youth Council can ensure that it's better for every single young person that exists in this country. I think the last number is about around 50,000 or some young people, and that we do that through supporting our member organizations, and also supporting people external from youth groups, looking at how we can ensure every single young person, the Renako, the Shakira, every single young person can be able to thrive in this society, and ensuring that there are opportunities for them to thrive, ensuring that there's youth representation in various policies and decisions happening in this country.
What do you think it would take for the BYDC to make suggestions in terms of addressing youth involved in the crime situation currently?
Well, the as BYDC, we would have held a press conference earlier this year and addressed certain things that we believe can help in terms of stemming the surge in violence we're seeing. We've contributed on various radio programs, and what I would say from a point of view is that we have to become real about this. Why is it that there's a surge in violence? We have to ensure that we are backed by data. Now, when we look at years ago, that there are certain morals and values which are not done today, so that we see that there's a deficit in was happening yesteryear and in what is happening now. We see certain things are changing, but what would have worked yesteryear may not be as it work now. So that you have to sit down, you have to do this comparative analysis, you have to be backed by data and to be able to make informed decisions to assist young people. And all of that, you have to ensure that you speak to young people and ensure what are their solutions to the challenges. And that is how you will see that surge in violence come down.
You've made mention of the straying away from morals and values and ethics that Barbadians would have lived by from eons ago. Do you see it as important for youth to return to, faith and the church, so to speak?
Well, I wouldn't name in terms of a particular religion, but we know that religions do help in terms of ensuring that that person's spiritual sense is somewhat I said can we use the word can to some extent, but that there are certain morals. And so, for example, years ago, it would have been the parents directing the child. Sometimes the parent would say, "Do as I say and not as I do." Now is you're asking the child, "Well, do you want to do this? You want to do that?" And it comes down to that of and children parenting children, and that is not the problem. The problem is that the morals and values that should have passed down, which would have ensured that that person is on the right foot and that person know what is right from wrong, it is a loss. So that those same things, and your child has to do this so that there's a routine. Your child know that that when you see someone pencil in the classroom, you don't take it up or do nothing. So that if you even take it that you got to carry it back. So my mother should drive that. If you see somebody think you leave it. And if I'd ever take up a pencil, I would have had to take it back. Those sort of morals and values that would ensure the stability of this country are lost. And we need to get back there and look at avenues and where that in 2024 we can implement various database solutions to be able to stem the surge in violence we're seeing.
Well, you've represented Barbados at the UN Summit for the Future. Uh, there's been a lot of conversation regarding the Sustainable Development Goals and Barbados reaching those goals. The youth advocates and social activists of today are going to be possibly, highly likely, the policymakers of tomorrow. So, how are you seeking to have your executive within BYDC make plans for, in terms of streamlining and being on course in achieving those SDGs?
So the BYDC is fully cognizant of in relation to the SDGs and that of the agenda for 2030. That is why during our 55th anniversary celebration this year, one of the things that we had to do is to go visiting summer camps. We were to partner with the Division of Youth Affairs and the United Nations Resident Coordinator Office here to be able to go to summer camps and to educate people about the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, it is hard for a society to be able to say that we are going to be pushing for these goals. SDG 17 partnership for the goals, zero hunger, climate action, and that your citizens do not know about these goals. So that the first thing first, there have to be increased and aggressive approach taken to education and sensitizing the public about the SDGs. And as a National Youth Council, you're going to see more and more that we are going to be doing that to ensure that our constituents, the young people, are fully abreast that the agenda for 2030 in relation to sustainable goals is ever so important to us because that sets the tone for how our future is going to be.
For you as a young person, do you feel as if the goals may be somewhat unrealistic?
I would never say that it's unrealistic. The scripture tells us that when there's a will, there's a way, and that believe that there's a way to be able to achieve that. Now, are we going to achieve it? Right now, I can't make such a statement because I am not fully abreast in relation to our country report to see the stage that we are at. But I do believe that we can, and that I have to commend the government for making several strides in achieving that. I believe the last time I would have heard is that I don't know if our country is probably in terms of the region making significant strides to achieve that. But I believe as a world we have a long way, and that these wars that we are facing and resources being pumped into conflict where the resources can be better pumped into other things, but prove to be a hindrance in such attaining such goals.
What do you think it would take to address the issue of hunger? I know you would have mentioned this at the conference that you would have attended in Antigua and Barbuda, but realistically, what would it take for us to address that particular issue?
Well, looking at it from a local context, I know many young people still go to school hungry. Um, sometimes where you see that is that, pride. I know our motto may be pride in the industry, but sometimes people do not say that they need help, you know. And that what needs to happen is that we have to if you need help, say you need help. There are various programs to be able to assist you. Now, what we are seeing though is that there are great strain on these various programs, which means that there's some sort of, I would say, a lack of I wouldn't term it as a lack of employment, a lack of certain opportunities for people to be able to ensure that they can have some sort of sustainable and comfortable living, putting a strain on these resources. But nonetheless, I still believe that if you can still see something and that there are many people who could be able to assist you, the Barbados Youth Development Council will be ready to assist our young people who may be going through hardships, and it may not be that we may be able to assist it from our coppers. As I tell you, our coppers may not be the one which is a lot. They'll be able to point you in the right direction. Seek out people who can help you. And the thing about it is, what I really want to touch on is that not every single opportunity you can find in this country. You're only 166 square miles, and that opportunities can be found abroad.
How do we balance the issue of brain drain while also encouraging our youth who have the intellectual capacity to find opportunities outside of the shores of Barbados?
Well, first thing first, you have to address why brain drain happens in the first place, where there's a lack of opportunities locally. So first thing first, what needs to happen is I believe it's a workforce analysis where you look at the current jobs available and the workforce that you can be able to get, so that we push out well, to use a better words, push out a lot of people from University of West Indies in these various programs. But can these programs and these various education opportunities get you actual opportunities here in Barbados? No, so that first and first, I have to be backed by data-driven statistics to see what is the current workforce. After doing that, you have to look at what can be done here in Barbados to ensure that people could still make a living, people could still eat on a day. What can be done so that to be able to ensure that the government could go there and get these various things to come to Barbados. Now, being 166 square miles, you'll see that you wouldn't get a lot of manufacturing. We get like light manufacturing. What you can happen is we can use our intellect, what the literacy rate, we are among what the smartest people in the world, so that we can be that knowledge hub. We can be the people that be able to create these solutions to the world's biggest challenges, looking at new and innovative ways. I believe there was some sort of sargassum cars running on sargassum. We can look at be that innovative hub not only for the Caribbean but for the world.
A hub of innovation, and you truly believe Barbados has what it takes to be that hub of innovation for the rest of the world.
Yes.
How is the Belfield Youth Council? Well, first, I should possibly ask, what is the Belfield Youth Council?
So the Belfield Council is a local charitable youth organization that which looks at the positive development of young people, primarily in Blackrock. We do expand work into the various surrounding districts. Now, the Belfield Council is primarily sports driven because that community of Belfield is really sports driven. And what we basically look at how we could be able to support the holistic development of young people resident primarily in the St. Michael West Central constituency, because that is basically where it's based. Whether it be in terms of CV writing, whether it be in terms of getting young people employed, whether it be sitting down, teaching young people sexual productive health rights, a myriad of various issues that young people may have. We would like to see how we can step in and address them and ensure that it's positive youth development.
And in looking at the case of you being the founder of the Belfield Youth Council, what advice would you have for young persons who may want to merge entrepreneurship with social activism?
Well, I think it goes hand in hand because as a young person and you're to reach the heights to be able to have in a successful business, I believe it's such a rite of passage for you to be able to assist young people where you can and ensure that they can thrive. May not be able to thrive at the levels that you have, but ensure that they can thrive and live a comfortable life, that they can be able to achieve their dreams. So it may be a case where they might be donating to, let's say, tournament, offering words of advice, because it can go hand in hand.
And in your work as founder of the Belfield Youth Council and president of BYDC, do you see a link between stemming the scourge of crime and being involved in sports and community initiatives?
Yes, yes, yes. Sports is, what usually happens. Let me break it down for you. So let me say, for example, let me say this young person lives, let me say, there's a green wall. Let me say this young person lives in a green wall. And green wall, there's this tree. And let me say they build the little shack and thing by the tree. They're going to line by the tree. But there's no football, there's nothing going on. What a young person can sit down there and lame. So let me say they get into smoking, they get into various things, and you know what gonna happen? They want to make money because they might not got certain opportunities. So what happen? They get into gambling. They can make a little extra money. They come up with five, they left with 25. They make certain things. But however, when you see that there are various activities, whether it be sports, cultural activities in these various in green wall, that young people will have opportunities to be able to gravitate towards that. They wouldn't be idle and focusing on other things and focus on football. And that happens because you see, first thing first is bragging rights, who could dribble the best, who scored the most goals, and then after that, what happens is that by the time they're done play football for, let me say, a couple hours, they're done tired, they go home, they bed, they want to sleep, they go up on the phone to talk to who they're going to talk to. So that you see that sports and these various recreation activities is obviously important. And it comes down to that. there needs to be more resource centers and community centers, and I am putting in the plug here that there needs to be a resource center and a community center in Delfield. It is needed, so that there needs to be a relook. When you look at resource centers and community centers where there are in-housing areas, but we have gone past that, and that there needs to be a better system where that you could be able to pop it and place them rather in very populated areas to be able to cater to young people so that they don't become idle and get into mischief.
Well, I understand your point. There's some within the older generation who says this is the crime is individual dependent. So some persons say you can provide resources for youth in a particular space, and some youth will take up those opportunities while other youth, because of the individuals that they are, choose not to get involved. What are your thoughts on that coming from the older generation?
The same older generation will come and say that everyone is different, so that the plans and policies that you may put in place for A to F may not work going down for the other letters. So that what needs to happen is that you have to realize everyone is different, because you might put sports, but that person may not be into sports. That person may be into e-gaming, and you know that you can make a lot of money in terms of e-gaming in your house, in terms of YouTube. You could make a lot of money streaming and doing those videos, so that you have to look at what can benefit that child, what can cater to that child, and it will only happen perseverance, passion, and commitment. And that is what the older generation is forgetting. You have to be able to, because you are not going to see the solutions that we need to be able to stop this surge by just painting everyone with the same brush and say, all right, that's football, that's sports. It can't work, and you will never see the solutions and the progress that you're looking for. You have to look at, if there's a group of people that you're not reaching, try to cater to them, have conversations with them, and see how you can reach them.
And for those who may be interested in entrepreneurship, how can we, provide policies that are supportive of persons who may be interested in financial management, marketing, leadership?
Well, I believe that the ministry here, the Ministry of Youth Sports and Community Empowerment, has a good program through the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. I believe they're doing tremendous work. I also believe that they're being branching out to communities, looking at how they could be able to support that. So we're urging young people who wants to get into entrepreneurship to come here to the ministry, contact the ministry, and make that program work for you. Just though that government pumping all these resources and the money that's stopping there are programs and policies that can assist young people. Make sure that they work for you. And if they ain't working for you, say, and as the National Youth Council, we would advocate for change.
Amazing work you're doing with the Belfield Youth Council and BYDC as well. We're going to pause here for a short commercial break, but we'll be right back for more one-on-one with Mr. Caleb Brathwaite.
Keep it clean, keep it green.
Barbadians, we invite you to get involved and play your part as we clean and green Barbados. Come into your community with media launches, bulk waste collection exercises, community engagement sessions, and giveaways. Get on board. Let's keep Barbados clean and green.
Beautiful, beautiful Barbados.
Welcome back to this very special one-on-one. We're having a conversation with President of the Barbados Youth Development Council, Mr. Caleb Brathwaite. Caleb, recently you would have been in Antigua and Barbuda in May of this year for the 4th International Conference for SIDS, and you spoke extensively to youth representation. Tell us about that particular opportunity in representing the island.
So my attendance at the 4th International Conference for Small Development SIDS was merely a follow-on from the first ever Global Children and Youth Action Summit, which was held in Antigua and Barbuda, and which was hosted by the Ashley Ashley Foundation along with UNICEF and other stakeholders. Now, coming out of that Children and Youth Summit, there's a 10-year commitment to action to call document, which basically looks at the various challenges that young people have and come up with solutions. We are not saying that these are challenges and we give them to government and policymakers and so let man find solutions. We came up with workable solutions that all they need is implementation and funding to be able to solve the challenges that we face. Now, my attendance at the Fourth International Conference for SIDS was basically to continue that level of advocacy and to ensure that world leaders, policymakers, come to an understanding that we need action now. This is what we're saying, and look at how we could be able to create the necessary conversations to ensure that there is action surrounding that.
Would you say that you're seeing improvements by policymakers in taking the calls from youth for, financial resources? Would you say you're seeing improvements in that area?
Well, you touching on financial resources, it makes me rethink to where I would have been. There was a government hosting Antigua and Barbuda, and I was given the opportunity to speak. It was attended by His Excellency the Governor General, along with Baroness Purchase of Scotland and the Commonwealth Secretary General. And right there, he made the plea is that time and time again, there are lack of financial resources pumped into youth development work. Now, I might be fortunate as BYDC in terms of locally in Barbados to be able to have the necessary financial resources, somewhat, I should say, to be able to do our work. But however, from a SIDS point of view, other countries do not. And even there's the non-existent national youth councils. So as a SIDS children and youth advocate, what really needs to happen is that first and first, each country must realize that the national youth council is ever so important to the national development and that there must be resources afforded to that national youth council. Now, making it into local context is that the National Youth Council, we have a home, we have these sort of things, we have been around since 1969, we have the existing structures and policies, but that are word of mouth. However, what is absent is that of legislation. Now, we know that legislation is ever so critical in ensuring the establishment of the organization and recognizing that the importance of such an organization as the BYDC. And what needs to happen, just like what has happened in St. Lucia. In St. Lucia, their National Youth Council is recognized by legislation. What needs to happen is that Barbados needs to follow suit. And we have the oldest National Youth Council in the region, established in 1969. So what needs to happen is that I really love that there be we can be either incorporated in the Youth Development Act coming out to youth policy, or that they can be that standalone legislation recognizing the National Youth Council. We can take the similar route in terms of how trade unions have that of collective bargaining rights, so that we can have such sort of bargaining rights that we could be able to advocate for youth groups and young people in the various spheres. That could be done because the National Student Council is under us, Youth Parliament and all these other agencies are for us, under us, so that as the umbrella organization that we can have that legislative backing, so that we're gone with the days of word of mouth that we are this, we are that. We have that legislative backing in terms of that that could open the avenue in terms of more financial resources, and if the government requires more financial scrutiny, that is no problem. But the more additional resources, so that what needs to happen, and this is a case where I'm actually going to be making this case to leaders in the Commonwealth when my attendance at the Commonwealth Youth Forum. I'm going to be making this case that Barbados needs have a legislative backing for the National Youth Council, and that for other countries must follow suit, like how St. Lucia follows suit, because St. Lucia really has that gold standard in relation to youth development, and I think Barbados needs to get to that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a timeline on when this legislative backing should be implemented?
But I want it now, but realistically, you can't get it now. But as soon as possible, it's really needed.
Mm-hmm. In making mention of the legislative backing needed for the Barbados Youth Development Council, what tax incentives do you think we can introduce to encourage youth on the path toward entrepreneurship?
Well, even before we get down in terms of encouraging young people on the path of entrepreneurship, we have to become real as a society. Not every single person can be an entrepreneur, because imagine a society with only entrepreneurs. What is going to happen? We also need work as a society. And I believe it is wrong to say that every young person can be an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
We are misleading our young people, and that needs to stop. Now, Having established that, is that they can be, I'm not in a perfect position to be able to speak on these various tax incentives and make an informed decision, but I can tell you that the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment has this excellent program, as I pull it up on my phone, the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme, which has services of direct technical assistance, facilitation of access to financial assistance, a mentorship program, an entrepreneurial development training program, an accounting service, marketing service, all of these things that the young people could be able to thrive through and ensure that also their business can thrive, right? So I encourage young people to get on board with the Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. I think, to my knowledge, is also the Youth Trust that assists young people, and there are various other entities that can be able to assist young people in doing.
That's an important topic that you touched on, and the fact that not everybody has the intellectual or social capacity to become
I wouldn't say
entrepreneurs.
intellectual or social capacity is that not every single person can be an entrepreneur. If everyone is an entrepreneur, we will have to need robots to be able to operate this business. Because first thing first, we're going to have 1,000 people selling to snorkels, 1,000 people selling food. The food be going off, the snorkels will be melting on the day. So that you need workers in society. We have not reached a stage where everything can be automated, that you can say, okay, we need workers, that we can use robots. No, we need workers. Who's going to pick up the garbage? The robots. We ain't got robots about here. So that we need workers in society, and we are misleading young people saying that every single people can be entrepreneur. However, you can do your little thing on your side. You can know, we see young people making the soaps. We see young people making the drinks, the natural drinks, and I always try to stop and support whenever I can. That can happen. But to be able to say that you're telling young people that, you know, you're going to be an entrepreneur, that is all. Imagine the ministry, what going to be happening? We ain't got nobody to support the social welfare young people in this country, even to support them who are entrepreneurs.
Well, not everyone is interested in entrepreneurship. How can we create comfortable working environments for young people now entering the job market?
So what we have to be able to come to the understanding of is that there's some people in the workforce, some older people, who make young people come into the workforce life a living hell. And it doesn't need to be like that. So we have to be able to get rid of that. Older people have to be able to get rid of that mentality and to ensure that they need to start making people life hard when they come into the workforce. Now, as a young person coming into the workforce, you are there to learn. Sometimes, some jobs ask for 5 to 10 years of experience, so coming to university, you have that experience, and that you're coming to the job to have that first-hand experience. And people in the work environment needs to understand that we are there to learn. Some people may learn at a different rate, so that you might be able to train John, and John get it real fast, but Tom may not be able to get it as fast. You understand? But that doesn't make Tom a less worker than John. It's just that he doesn't have the ability to be able to learn at such a fast rate. But Tom may be able to get in the workforce after getting the hang of it and really do just as much as John. Now, training development is ever so important, ensuring that young people have a comfortable life, because it just can't be able to just push young people in the wilderness and say, okay, look, you do this, you have to ensure that they have the necessary training development, and constantly ensure that you be able to check in and be able to monitor progress. And if you're seeing that their progress is not up to the standard, have a conversation with them. But one of the greatest challenges young people face in the workforce is that older people are making their life a living hell, or is that the older people do not want to probably take a leave, and ensuring that young people could be able to excel, and that the young people are always stagnant in terms of the workforce.
Do you feel as if there needs to be some mending of the relationships between the older generation and the generation now of young, ambitious people?
I I think that I wouldn't say that in terms of many, but it needs to be a conversation had and a coming together. I guess it could be from the point of view of the Barbados Youth Development Council, working with the Barbados Association of Retired Practitioners. I don't know the association for mature people that exists now, but that there needs to be a conversation had, where that we have to sit down and say that, you may be able to do something in 19 something and even the early 2000s that we don't do now. So that there needs to be a conversation had, a bridging of gaps, to be able to ensure that collectively we can go forward.
What policies or systems do you think can be put in place to assist those youth entering the job market or furthering their education who may be coming from marginalized or dispossessed backgrounds?
So, you would have started off the interview highlighting that I'm from Black Rock. Everyone know um, about Black Rock. Whether if people may use it in terms of a negative connotation in relation to someone's mental state or in terms of violence. But nonetheless, I guess I'm perfectly poised to be able to answer such a question. I know going with the days, some people say that, you can't put down certain communities when you're playing. People might say that they can't put down hands or they might go put down another heights on everything. So they start say, I think that's nonsense and the foolishness. I believe once you have the requisite skills and your CV and you present yourself in such a manner that the employer would be able to hire you. I think it's nonsense. And if it still persists, it's nonsense and it needs to change. Now, education is free for everyone. So there's always education opportunities that young people could be able to access. But the challenge comes where they go to school and they maybe play the fool, and they don't really maximize the time at school. Now, the other avenues, there are various programs that I've said, there are various programs out there for young people to benefit from, and that all they need is that will, and there is a way for them to be able to thrive. The challenge may be in terms of getting to and from programs in terms of bus fare. I've seen up to what yesterday someone sent me a construction program where they're providing stipend, so that challenge is out there. And it's just and if young people have a challenge in terms of accessing the internet, we have various community centers that have free access to the internet to be able to go with their phone. And if they have access to the device, the same community centers have that device. So that is only a matter of a will for young people in these various marginalized communities to be able to get out and be able to make a positive living, so to speak.
In making mention of the psychiatric hospital, do you see a link between a person's mental health and the financial hardships that they may be experiencing?
Well, the mental health topic is ever so important as young people, and I will make the plea here that there needs to be mental health days. Sometimes when people take days for themselves, they have to use up their sick days. So why do I have to use up my sick days? Why can't I just have a certain allocated amount of days for me to be able to recharge? I visited the psychiatric hospital and serving my time in youth parliament, we actually debated on mental health. So I urge people listening and viewing to be able to go back and watch that debate of what youth parliamentarians would have said about mental health, and we would have came up with some excellent solutions to the challenges we face. Now, in visiting psychiatric hospital, there wasn't really a lot of young people within there, based on what I've seen. But however, there are a lot of young people facing mental health challenges outside of that institution, and you have to be able to look at how to best to be able to support them. It may not be to the state where Bajans will come and say that boy mad, that boy talking to themselves. But we all experience various forms of mental health challenges. Now, I'm not able to speak from that professional point of view, but what I can tell you is that one of our member organizations, Let's Unpack It, has been doing tremendous work in terms of educating and sensitizing not only here in Barbados but across the region about various mental health challenges and that linkages to young people. They would have came up with a resource packet to be able to better to see how best they can be able to support young people. And I do implore policymakers to take a look at that and to be able to call upon Let's Unpack It to be able to support what we consider the crisis around the world, because that's also a crisis, because mental health is something that we never really took into consideration, that we never really acknowledged, but we see that a lot of us are affected by mental health, whether it be depression, we are affected.
It seems as if Let's Unpack It, co-led by Dr. David Johnson,
Yes.
is creating a lot of conversation within the youth space about the importance of prioritizing one's mental health. Do you feel as if conversations by such entities help in addressing mental health problems?
Yes. The only way that we are going to solve the challenges surrounding mental health is first and first having conversations. There have to be education and sensitization among with coming with these conversations, and you have to be able to look at how you can be able to implement the policies needed to be able to solve the challenges. It all starts with a conversation.
Mhm. And you hold an important portfolio as the president of BYDC. How easy was it for you in terms of getting the attention of policymakers as you advocate for your causes regarding financial empowerment, regarding entrepreneurship, social activism, and even mental health to some degree? How easy or how difficult was it for you to lay the table and to establish those relationships?
Well, I will reminisce on the conversation a year or 2 years ago where current Minister of Youth Works and Community Empowerment, who would have challenged youth leaders and challenged youth groups to make noise. And noise I have been making, advocating for the interests of young people who are resident, not even who are resident here, young Barbadians at that. Now, making noise is important, and also creating that necessary connections to be able to ensure that you could be able to achieve what you're set about achieving. You have to be able to make connections with local partners, regional and international partners. That is why you will see that will be involved in terms of these various international summits. Because I can assure you, even though I may go in various capacities, whether it be a state's capacity, I'll always make it known that I'm the president of the Barbados Youth Development Council, and I always set about looking at how I could be able to bring back things to benefit the young people. When I attended the Commonwealth of Ministers meeting, I would have met with someone from the Street Soccer Academy, and that basically is a charity group that allow young people to be able to learn football in terms of skill. They provide technical support, whether it be equipment, and also allow young people to be able to go and play football at these various the clubs, like Chelsea and these various famous English clubs. And I was adamant that I had a conversation with that lady and to be able to put them in touch here with the ministry to be able to see how best young people could be able to benefit, so that we are not only going to, as the National Youth Council, we are not going to achieve what we are going to achieve in terms of looking at the holistic development of young people, but we only engage in local partners. We engage regional partners and we engage international partners. And that is what we come out of my trips and looking at how young people can benefit and ensure that there's a better life for young people.
And we'll speak to the importance of some of these regional and international partnerships.
Mhm.
How critical is it for youth within spaces like yourself to touch road, so to speak, or to establish themselves within the international community so that they bring back to Barbados what they would have learned for the betterment of the island?
It is ever so important. When you look at the globe, I guess you have to squint your eye to find Barbados. So we are a small dot in the world, and that we do not exist in a vacuum. Globalization is real, and to be able to achieve what we want to achieve in Barbados, you have to speak with our neighbors. You have to speak with people outside of our neighbors. So, for example, when I recently attended the United Nations Summit of the Future, I was there to represent small developing states. But you see that if people probably watch my contribution, you see that the announcement as president of the Barbados Development Council, ever so important. Coming out of such my title being announced and everything, so I would have entered into various discussions from people in terms of Africa, and looking at how we can be able to bridge in terms of African youth leaders or Caribbean youth leaders. That is why I believe that an African Caribbean Youth Leaders Summit is ever so important, bridging what because Africans consider the diaspora. I was sitting next to I remember I was listening to the UN Secretary General. There was a contribution was making, and I was sitting next to this guy who said that who heads the cybersecurity in I believe it was Nigeria. And I was like, oh, well, I'm from Barbados. He, oh, yes, of course. He recognizes from Barbados. And he said, in Africa, we consider the Caribbean as our diaspora. And that they are looking at the way how they can be able to bridge ties and support in terms of black to black our African heritage supporters. And that is only been done at the top level. and it needs to be done at the bottom level, supporting young people. So that is why this African Caribbean Youth Leaders Summit is ever so important. And as the National and the Barbados Youth Development Council is looking at how we can be able to pull this off in a couple of years. Now, due to my representation at the Summit of the Future, and even in terms of in Antigua and Barbuda, I would have been able to bring home, meet with several people. This country that I've even never heard of, North Republic, can't get it pronounced, but these various people that I'll be able to meet are looking at how I could be able to put them in touch with various policymakers, because Barbados Development Council do not exist in a vacuum. Looking at how we could be able to create the necessary conversations with government and to be able to ensure that young people could benefit.
What advice would you have for youth in Barbados in terms of being active citizens and making a difference where their country is concerned and doing Barbados proud?
Well, I like how you said doing Barbados proud, but I would say taking the words from the national press, doing credit to Barbados. And there's several avenues and ways where young people can be able to do such, and also do credit to themselves as people. Now, there are various youth groups and youth organizations that exist in this country. Join a youth group. And I want to touch on that, is that, some of the problems that we are facing is that because a lack of people being involved in youth groups. That's a real problem. Join a youth group, contribute to society, actively contribute. It not only helps with your personal development, because the thing about it is that the various opportunities I have been able to unlock and the various people I've meet during doing rather this volunteer job, it's crazy. Who would have ever thought I'd be sitting on a stage with UN Secretary General inside the UN General Assembly Hall? First thing first, even being, I would have never, tell me so last year, I would have never think about that. I'm meeting the, well, it is crazy. And that there are avenues and ways where you can try to do volunteerism.
What barriers, though, do you think would prevent young people from making the move where active citizenship is concerned and getting involved in these youth councils?
I guess one of the major challenges is time. Because as I say, young people are spread across state, if they, whether it be in terms of pursuing a higher level education, whether it be in terms of their personal life and work life, they now having to try to be able to fit now in terms of youth work or any other type of charitable work this time. One of the greatest challenges, which I highlighted earlier, is that of resources. This work, even though you are doing free work, it is not free for you. You have to get to and from these places. You have to make sure you look nice and more sure for the people watching, and they want to buy like right, you gotta get a haircut, they gotta get certain things, haircuts are $25 and up now. So that there's a lot of resources being pumped into this. It's just not that we have to become weird about this. You have to ensure that even in terms of technology, because everything's driven by technology, you have to ensure you get computers. You can't really rely on the organization, which means have limited financing to do all these things. So time and resources, I say, are the greatest challenges.
How do you believe that youth activism can aid in policy decisions where the young people are concerned?
Well, I think it plays a great role, because when I sit on a national committee, I sit on various things that be able to actively contribute to policy today, and I can tell you that we have a role to play. We have been playing a role, and we actively contribute to policies.
Mm-hmm. And what are your long-term goals in terms of your advocacy work currently?
So one of the things from a national council standpoint is, of course, looking at the holistic development of young people and looking at how we could be able to best support our member organizations. So first thing first, the system that we're dealt with in terms of this current youth space, just like how it's a UN system needs revamping, our current system needs revamping, and we can actually take reference from the St. Lucian model. So we have to be able to revamp this system. We have to be to look at how we be able to support our youth groups, how we be able to support our youth organizations.